I think stage is going to be. We've worked on it for a long time. It's interesting, I think, for all you guys actually playing and using the instruments. We've had a long period. I mean, when we first launched, just sort of after October, we worked very, very hard. And we had quite a lot of new features go in and a lot of stability improvements. But then it went very, very quiet after we did NAMM in January. And the reason it went very quiet is because we had to go back and re-architect quite a lot of things in the core system in order to make things like Stage possible. And a lot of EigenD's user interface has been rewritten in C++, which is, for all the software guys out there, you'll realize it's a fairly major undertaking. It also has been made cross-platform, so it automatically runs on Windows and Macintosh platforms. But you can see now, I think over the next 3 or 4 months, it's going to be very exciting for everybody because lots of the work we've been quietly doing and beavering away doing over the summer is now going to start to come to fruition. So we're going to see a lot of features start to appear quite rapidly in the product, and I think that's going to be great fun.
Cool. Just a question about Arranger on the Pico somehow. Is that
well, the Pico doesn't really have enough keys to support the Arranger. We are planning to produce a widget for Stage at some point. It won't be till later next year, which gives you a view of the large virtual window the Arranger sits on. So you're aware that the Arranger is a window of keys over a much larger potential grid of keys. And at the moment, that's very hard to navigate, particularly on a Pico, because you've only got 2 by 18 keys over that larger virtual window. I can't see any reason at all you couldn't run it on the Pico if we have a tool to enable you to locate the window you've actually got in that larger grid. I think without that tool, the Pico is there's no particular reason you can't put an Arranger on a Pico immediately now, in fact, but I just think it would be quite confusing and very, very hard to navigate. So, although, there's no reason not to do that.
Yeah, you can do that.
It's quite possible to do it. There's no technical reason not to do it. It's more a usability reason that we don't do that at the moment. But as I say, one of our ambitions is to produce a widget that gives you visibility of where you are in the Arranger on the larger window of keys, and I think that could make the Arranger on the Pico very usable indeed, particularly for DJ type applications where you're using it, with a keyboard or with other scratching software or whatever. So.
Is there anything else? There's not been really many questions coming in so far.
No, it's okay. I'm not getting a good roasting, which is what I was expecting. No, I think really, as I say, I think we could all look forward to Stage, seeing that next week. And please get testing it. Give us as many bug reports as you can. See if you can break it. It really helps us to get the stability of the software up as well when you do that. And thank you all for your help doing that as well. We get a lot of great bug reports from all our own players, and I think that's a big reason that our software is getting more and more robust and tougher and more production worthy. So,
I'm retired from racing due to the wonderful developments that are about to emerge.
Okay, right. That's very nice.
How coding on the Pluto will be handled?
Well, okay. So fingering. Now, we have a plan to produce an agent called a fingerer, and this is not going to happen this year, I don't think, but it's likely to happen in the new year, called a fingerer. And for the Pico, that would extend its range dramatically in terms of not having to use the octave keys to get up and down, and it would make it very playable for people that are used to playing wind instruments. There are some issues with that it seems like a very simple thing to do to arrange chording, but actually there's a subtle complexity that makes it actually very complicated for us to do. And probably best if I actually explain that. When you put your fingers on keys and to produce from a combination of keys, one note, one desired frequency output, those fingers don't go down simultaneously. They go down, and there's a time difference between them. If you respect this completely, so you have a no latency system, which does not have any delay in it, then you get glitches, because as you put one finger down, you may step through 3 or 4 fingerings over the period of 50 to 100 milliseconds as the fingers go down, and that could produce something quite wild. You could go up an octave, down an octave, and then settle on the final note. And it's in sort of normal wind instruments, that is dealt with by the inertia of the physics in the instrument, by the time delay it takes for the air column to change oscillation sort of frequency, and for the time it takes the instrument to adapt. The same thing kind of happens in string instruments to a lesser extent, but the physics of the instrument helps us with that. The way that electronic wind instrument analogues work, things like the EWI, is they actually put a delay in. So the EWI actually has a number of millisecond delay. It's quite large, I believe. I think it's about 10 to 20 millisecond delay while it waits to decide what fingering you've actually fingered, and then it will output the MIDI note that comes with it. So it's quite and that delay has to be surprisingly long to avoid mistriggers as you finger the keys, or it becomes very, very hard to play the instrument because it tends to mistrigger very easily. Now, for us, latency, well, for me particularly, latency, I have an abhorrence of latency. I dislike it intensely. I think it disconnects a person from the instrument they're playing in a very, very strong way. So we would like to find a solution to that that's a little bit more sophisticated than just waiting for you to get the right fingering. That makes it much more difficult because you have to then basically provide the equivalent of the thing that happens in real wind instruments, in blown wind instruments, with physics in them, with air columns in them, and all the inertia that goes on with that. We have to make sure that that process can happen in our system. Now that's, because of the way our system works, is actually possible, which it isn't possible with MIDI because you have to output a note on. In our system it is possible to do that, but it requires quite a lot of careful thought. And when we started to design our fingerer in our heads, and we had a meeting about it to talk about how to do it, it emerged that it was not a week's work to produce, as I initially rather naively thought it might. It actually was probably more like a month's work for somebody to do a really good job of that. So it will take a little while, and we will be doing it, but it's going to be a little while before we start.
Cool. Someone has heard something about Jose Silva has heard about the strummer.
Oh, the strummer, yes. In fact, actually, lots of people want the strummer. We have a fairly we have a couple of players at the moment out there that are fairly well known that are actually asking for this as well. And actually, it's not so difficult. So says the man that doesn't have to write it. I believe it's not so difficult. Jim assures me it's not too difficult. So you may see that a lot sooner. I can't promise when because I haven't asked Jim for any kind of ETA. And our big focus at the moment is getting stage and workbench out. But it doesn't sound particularly difficult. It actually turns out that strummer is a general idea of being able to modulate one set of control signals with another set of control signals. And we've been asked for it for the breath pipe so that we can re-trigger notes when people tongue or start blowing again. And in fact, Dino Soldini was the first guy to really ask for this. It turns out exactly the same principle then gives you the ability to strum a guitar or to modulate piano, or it's a general idea that really needs to be its own agent, and Jim is intending to implement it in this manner. And at the moment it looks fairly practical to do so. We may find it's more difficult than it seems when we get to it. Quite a lot of things end up that way, but we'll keep you posted. Okay. It won't be going into 1.2, that's one thing I can say, but we may do a 1.3 release before we do the 2.0 release as an interim, because there's a few features that we're not getting into 1.2 that we would probably like to get in before we do the 2.0 release.
This is actually quite what I was actually just about to ask, but
right.
Windows. Should we have a quick talk about Windows?
Windows, well, we're hoping now to move 1.2 into testing very shortly, and we're hoping to get that stable on Windows 7 very shortly. Windows Vista, we're not quite sure how well it works at the moment. We've not done a lot of testing on that. The one thing I will say is we don't think that XP is likely to be supported probably this side of February or March next year, and there is some question as to whether or not we will ever support it. So we're getting some requests to support it from people in the education market, but that's about it at the moment. Most people on Vista seem to be moving to 7 quite rapidly, because 7 is a much nicer operating system than Vista as a general rule. And we're really concentrating on getting Windows 7 good and stable.
And will we see Windows for the Alpha and Tower?
Oh yes. No, the thing that's holding Windows up for the Tower and Alpha is the headphones and the microphone on the Alpha, and that requires it's the USB pipe stuff. It's just a bit complicated to get out, but you will see it for the Tower. But once again, that's probably not going to be this year. It'll be early next year now for the Tower, I think.
So. Okay, cool. Let's see if anybody else has any questions to come through.
That's okay. That's it.
Italy, I thought.
Is there anything else you would like to?
No, I don't think so. I think our exciting news really is stage, and I think, as I say, I'm once again asking everybody if they can play with it and give it a go, and be kind to us as far as possible. We've done a fair bit of testing with Stage. It does seem to be. I mean, I haven't yet managed to crash it, and I usually am the person that manages to crash software fairly quickly. But no, it's looking quite good. I mean, it's fairly restricted. I would do a little bit of expectation management with you all right now. Stage at the moment is fairly restricted in what it can do. It can only really twiddle values that we've set to be twiddled, and it's really it's really a framework in which we're going to add lots more things as we go along. Now that we've got Stage and we've got the basic protocols working, we've got the basic system working, it enables us to add functionality and controls that are more suited to a graphical type of control environment than they are suited to the physicality of the instrument. And also, the whole Wi-Fi thing with the iPhone and being able to strap one onto yourself or Velcro it to your instrument, which is the other thing that people seem to be wanting to do, does bring quite a lot of intriguing possibilities in the future. We have some interesting ideas, for example, for Stage. We'd like to produce an eigen key for Stage, a soft eigen key where you can actually build keyboards layouts in the tabs as well, so you can use the touchscreen capacity. It won't be as good as a real eigen key, but it'll be a thing you can do, to add functionality as well. So.
When you retire the browser, have you any plans for what to do with the keys currently used for scrolling on the keypad?
We are probably going to not bother with them at the moment. Say not bother. You can connect them up, and they'll become part of a key group. We may make a little key group of 2 in the standard factory setups, but once Workbench is out, people are going to build thousands of these setups. So one of the things I'd like to look forward to is a much more extensive trading of different kinds of setups to do different kinds of things on the forums, and I think we're probably going to put a section of the wiki together where we actually have setups you can download, and there'll be lots of them. It's been one of the disappointments of my life that the difficulty of building setups using Bel Canto, and more profoundly there are issues at the moment with our setups, which is when we produce new software versions, the upgrade process for upgrading old setups requires us to do quite a lot of work to write sort of upgrade scripts and to test them to make sure it's fairly robust. So we've been quite reluctant to produce lots of new setups. It was our original ambition to make lots of setups available so people could have all these crazy things that they want to do as setups. But the fact that we're going to have this big jump when Workbench comes in, and we've known about this jump coming where we're not going to be able to reuse any of the old setups after Workbench is in, after 2.0 comes out, the 2.0 series, that has really held us back from creating too many, because a lot of them will just disappear, and it just seems a bit of a waste of effort, to be honest. But it's not going to be too long now before that's out there.